the old CB tank here. We're not doing a complete restoration. Basically redoing it for a guy to put it up for sale and make some money on. Kind of flips bikes, and I do the paint work for him. So you can see underneath, it looks pretty original almost. You can see it starting to rust here. They do a good job of painting over these things back in the day. Now I've got a ding. Slight ding there. I know I saw another one on there. So on these type of deals, we're going to put new stripes on it. Got them here in a box. So, but I got all the work done here first. So leave these over here. And here's another ding back here. So first thing I usually like to do on stuff like this, because these are clear coated over, you gotta get these stripes off. Paint looks like it's in really good shape actually, so I don't need to strip this down to bare metal. But cut this edge of the clear off and peel these big stripes off. So we're going to start with that. So I'm going to hit it with a DA and some 220 grit, and we'll see how that goes, and I'll be right back.
Like a bird on a tree, I'm just sitting here. I got time, it's clear to see. From up here, the world seems small. We can sit together. It's so beautiful, you and me. We meant to be in the great outdoors, forever free. Sometimes you need to go and take a step back to see the truth around you. From a distance you can tell. You and me were meant to be in the great outdoors.
Alright, as you can see, what I did is hit this all with 180 just to get those stripes off. They came wrapped really easy. They weren't even worth trying to peel. The OEM ones that I've done in the past, they actually laid a lot of material on the bikes back then compared to that. I don't know what this is a reshoot, what the story on this is, but supposedly it's only got like 1,800 miles in the original tank. Maybe it's original. I don't know. It just seems a little weird to me, or suspect. I don't know. But anywho, either it is original or it's been stripped and redone, because there's very little paint on here. I don't know. It's hard to say. But it sands very easy. It powders really easy. So what I'm going to do now, like I said, this guy is buying this bike to have it redone to sell to make some money on. I'm just going to 220 the rest of this, feather out anything. We're going to hit the dings, clean up any rust areas like that, clean that out. And then we're going to prime the whole tank, block it out, shoot the black base coat, clear it, 1 or 2 coats of clear, sand it down with some 800 or 1,000, lay our stripes on it, and then re-clear it. That's the procedure. I like to have a barrier coat of clear when I'm laying the stripes on, especially on these. You got to cut them on the tank. They're kind of a generic aftermarket stripe that you got to trim to fit right. So that's where we're going to go. Next time we catch up, this will be all knocked out with 220, and then I'll walk you through fixing some of these dings right here with some filler. So 220 on the edge. All right, we're back. So remember, these abrasive discs are through Norton. They're awesome. They make a 3-inch, a 2-inch, a blue, and an orange. The orange is for stripping. The blue is less aggressive. They really don't affect metal, which is awesome. So if you're trying to strip something and not hurt the metal or move it, the blue will do that all day long. So basically what I'm going to do is try to grind these little spots so that the filler fits in there or sticks in there very well. I like to feel the tank over, see if I can catch any more little areas that might have possible dings that you can't see. They get all the tape glue off of that, so I'm going to get that off of the ding there. Sometimes it's a good idea just to take a marker so you don't miss something and be sure you got them all. It's not always evident where the damage is once you start sanding and paint goes away. Your hand is your best tool for finding dents over your eye. Sometimes you can feel dents that you don't even really see. There's a very subtle thing there, especially going on a black tank. And these tanks back then were far from perfect. If any of you guys have worked on any old cars, almost compared to today's standards. Another trick to amplify if you want to feel a dent is take a piece of paper towel or a white cloth and lay that down and then use your hand over that. It'll actually, if you rub your hand really lightly, will amplify any dents to your fingers. Like I said, this is not a complete restoration show concourse piece. This guy just wants it dent free and shiny, so when he goes to sell it, it looks good. We still do quality work, that's why I stripped this. Other than even if it's a quick job, I still do half-ass work with paint or peel. So you might ask, why don't you just strip this? Well, it's a lot of work, and honestly, if that paint's sticking well, which I'm thinking this is a newer paint, just based on the way the clear sands, it has good adhesion, it's not going to fall off, I'm going to stick with it. The main reason I blew this stuff off is because you really can't sand very well in these areas. And I'd rather, and this paint is pretty thin, so I'd rather have a good primer base around that area. That's why I stripped it. And it came to bare metal where the tape stripes were. So that's the thought process behind what we're doing. Underneath, we're going to Scotch-Brite the living daylights out of it, clean it up. I usually hang these tanks when I paint them and just give it a good once over on the bottom, and we're going to call it good there. Like I say, it's not going to be a concourse piece, but it looks really good when we're done. Maybe ask about the dents and filling them. You can pull tents. I do have a glue system or a weld system, but these tanks are so thin, weld system will actually cause more damage in the long run than that little bit of a ding right there. Better just to fill it. These tanks are pretty rigid. They're not going to flex. They're not going to move, and I've never had a little bit of filler pop out over time. A lot of my work is repeated work from the same guys in these restoration old bike stuff, and it seems to work. I never had issues. Tanks I painted 20 years ago. So anyway, we will get going on with the filler part next. One thing I wanted to bring up, and I probably didn't mention before, but this tank, before I even started anything, I took it to a sink and washed it out with soap and water and degreased everything I could, get the grime off of it. And then you always use a degreaser before you start sanding. It probably wasn't evident. I should have showed you that. But generally, you want to pull off any contaminants, grease, grime, road grime off before you even start sanding. Otherwise, you can grind it into your surface. And cleanliness, they say, is godliness. Well, it's true with paint work. So after this, I already got this degreased and wiped down, but you can apply it to the rag and wipe the whole tank down. It's a little cold in my shop. Got the old-fashioned garage like most of you guys probably have. And you don't want to just like walk away and leave it dry like that. When it's in hot weather, it'll dry off faster as you're wiping it. But what the grease and wax remover does, it brings the grime to the surface, and then you wipe it off with your towel. One of the things I like to do when it's colder and the metal's colder, I think my shop says it's 45 degrees right now, is I'll use a blow gun while I'm wiping it down to help aid, especially in any crevices where the grease remover can kind of pool in there and knock it out. So I just wanted to be sure that tip was well aware. But this piece has been Scotch-Brited, living daylights out of all the crevices. I like on edges like this to sand in the bare metal because they kind of build up. This one, like I said, has thin paint on it. So not such a concern, but I usually like to have my own material on there and not very thick and big. So what we're going to do now, we're going to get the body filler out, fill these dings I marked everywhere. There's quite a few as I was going over it, catching them, some more subtle than others. But that's the biggest one. The rest of these are just little tingers on it. Not sure what happened over time. But I understand this bike has like, it's a Survivor that was pulled out of a barn somewhere with like 1,800 miles or something crazy like that. 70s, not sure the year. I'm a bike enthusiast, but a lot of these I don't know the back history or what they are. I just enjoy the paint part of that and take care of them and shoot them. So I'll get the filler out and we'll start laying some filler on here, and then we will sand those out with 220 grit or 180 and then 220, and then we'll prep it for primer and we'll get it in the booth and shoot it. If you're wondering about the temperature, my booth I have a heat source pumping heat into that, so I can get that up to about 70 degrees. Working out here with sanding and stuff, you can do it at colder temperatures. It'd be nice to have a shop. I do have a stove over here pumping heat in here, but it's still a pretty good garage, and we're in the northern part of the United States where it gets kind of cold. So one of the things you got to do. All right, we're back. What I like to use for these little tiny dings is just a glazing putty. Sands well, feather edges very well. I'll lay it all out on these, skim coat everything, come back when it's dry, hit it with some 180, 220, knock it flat, and then we'll prime this whole tank. It doesn't take a lot, it goes a long ways. Just a little bit of hardener, especially glaze. It dries way faster than regular old body filler. And the other thing I like to do, I'm sure my stratter is, I got some, okay, sure there's no hangers on this, or it's nice and smooth so you don't scrape anything into it. And you got to mix it nice and consistent until the colors get even. When it's cool like this, it's not that big a deal, but if it's 90 degrees out like it gets here in the summer, this stuff can dry like in minutes on you, and it doesn't get very far, so I don't mix a lot out at a time. This amount I just mixed on this putty, on this putty board here, it's probably way more than I'll use on this entire thing, so it's kind of a waste, especially if this stuff's not that cheap. So I'll just in case you need it. We'll start off by just finding all our little marks we made. It doesn't take much. I like to leave a little more because you're going to sand it off, but I'm going to have to come back and redo it. So should be able to one coat all these. That thing in the front might present a little bit of a, I don't know what you want to call it, a recoat. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll put a little bit in there first, let it set for a second, and come back and do the top coat. double check everything else. I don't think there's very much. In the scheme of dings and dents, this thing is pretty clean, honestly, for something that's that old, if it's that old indeed. So. It doesn't take much to fill little dings. And then that surfacer primer will take care of any other weirdness. Okay, so this stuff sands and fills pretty well. Feathers out like primer almost, so. Yeah, this piece here is going to require a second coat. I don't want to have any air bubbles and stuff in there, so kind of wasted the filler I got here. And you can see I didn't even use very much. Goes a long ways. All right. Out that you put we're back. I use Hook It in the shop. Hate the stick it stuff. It seems to always not stick or sand well. The little cushion you get from having a Hook It back pad on here helps stuff stand very well. And then it's always easy to reuse pads and swap them around. So one thing too, feels pretty hard. Since I said it's like 45 degrees in here, I wanted this up with a heat gun to help speed it up a little bit, so I'm not waiting all day. But this nice even path, you can see if it's starting to work or not, or if it's dry enough by the fact that there's no body filler sticking to the paper. It'll clog it in a heartbeat if it's not dry enough. But usually a 45-degree path, back and forth, different directions. Let the block kind of do the work. You don't really need to push, especially when you're just doing really, really light stuff like this. I'm just going to stand this up so you can see really well. Biggest thing with paint work that I can advise, and I had the most trouble with it myself, is try not to rush, try not to be in a hurry. Never really benefits. Usually bites you in the ass. But what you're looking for is a nice, even feather transition between the metal and where you're sanding. So how it feathered out very nice. It went from color, light to nothing. Just easy. And you can run your finger across this all day long. You don't feel anything. When you get a filler primer on that, it'll block it out nicely. You'll never know that was there. You don't want to have any kind of edges, sharp edges where it's like, So I'm going to go ahead and sand another one of these, and then we'll time lapse it, and you'll see when we're done here. All right, I thought I was going to be able to get this sanded and prepped and be in the booth in the next video, but I wanted to show you this. Remember I was talking about a nice smooth transition? Even though this feathered out here, back here, it's a solid line. It's not feathered like this is. This is what you call an undercut. That you can have a small little ding in the center, and it could not be so deep, but it could be very wide. And what's going on is basically that ding is coming all the way out here. When I run my finger over this, I can feel a slight edge. Yeah, could I fill that in with some filler primer and probably get away with it? Yeah. You might have a shrink back later and show what they call an asshole or a ring. So what we're going to do is just do one more thin skim coat on this, bring that out, bring that filler out to here, sand it back, and it should be a nice smooth transition like everywhere else. Yeah, it's another step, another resand, But better to do it now than have it show its ugly head when you're in the paint booth laying base coat and clear coat. So, and you can definitely feel that. The one thing to do too is also look away while you're feeling something. Look away, and so your eyes don't try to trick you of what you're feeling or not feeling. Kind of amazing what you'll say, oh, that feels good, but it really isn't. You look away and you run your hand, and you're like, I can feel that now. So anyway, just wanted to show you that little tidbit. All right, something I learned back in my rep days was to use a glass cleaner to wipe down your project to pull all the sanding dirt out, and then go with the solvent cleaner. So that's what I'm going to do here. Do that first. It's amazing how much cleaner a glass cleaner will get something than a solvent. But you want to do this first, and then the solvent can remove any contaminants, oils, greases that glass cleaner does. This is mainly cleaning it, kind of like giving it a bath. It'll pull out all that dirt. And also something the glass cleaner does, depending on what kind of parts you're doing, will anti-static the part. Get it without kill the static electricity you might have, which can control dust and dirt issues in your painting, especially on fiberglass or plastic parts. And like I said, it's cold, so I like to go with this as a blow gun. Kind of air dry it. And then I'll blow it off again and remove any dust and tack. But just want to let you know that's a bit. It doesn't matter if you buy a paint type glass cleaner or just off the shelf glass cleaner, just no ammonia. Just regular old glass cleaner without ammonia. We'll see you in the booth.